Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. ISKCON Founder Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be able to speak today. So I'll try my best. So we're reading from the Transcendental Diaries on chapter 2. Srila Prabhupada is visiting Auckland, April 26, 1976. So I was thinking that I will read through the material and then we can have a discussion. April 26, 1976. With 3 hours time difference and 3 hours travel, it was 10 p.m. when our Air New Zealand flight touched down in Auckland. There at the airport, to greet Srila Prabhupada were 50 to 60 jubilant chanting devotees with drums, kartals, and guitars. It was quite a heterogeneous crowd, most of them were from Tushta Krishna Swami's group. The local ISKCON temple was only about 12 men and women. On the way to the temple, cars and vans packed with excited devotees sped ahead, waving, smiling, and shouting, Jaya Prabhupada, as they passed. Can you all hear me clearly? So at ISKCON Sri Sri Radha Giridhari Temple, this was at 67 Gibblehurst Road, Mount Eden. The Auckland Temple is large, 2-story suburban house with spacious gardens and scattered with fruit trees. The property was originally purchased by Tushta Krishna Swami before he and the entire population of temple abandoned to go on their own way in 1973. The devotees were already lining the pathway when we arrived, and they all eagerly squeezed in behind Srila Prabhupada after he entered the building. It was too late to have darshan of the deities, so Srila Prabhupada went straight to his quarters on the upper floor. As many devotees as possible crowded into the small room, and Prabhupada happily preached to his eager audience for a short while. He complimented the devotees on their enthusiastic spirit and emphasized the valuable opportunity the human form of life brings. He read the second and third slokas of the newly published Nectar of Instruction, briefly explaining the point by point the 6 things necessary for spiritual advancement as well as the 6 things to avoid. He requested all devotees to read it, telling them that it contains all the information necessary for attaining perfection in spiritual life. Prabhupada took a little puri and sabji as everyone looked on, and then had me distribute the remnants along with some sweets. Tushta Krishna's men had made on their farm. When I had finished, Prabhupada, as kind and thoughtful as ever, asked me if I had taken anything. I shook my head. So you also take, he said, with a loving smile. It was shortly before midnight when the devotees left his room. So we can see a few words that I've highlighted here, that Srila Prabhupada complimented the devotees for their enthusiastic spirit. He also mentioned the important teaching of Sri Rupa Goswami, the 6 do's and don'ts from verse text 2 and 3, which we can probably go on later on once we finish it through the course material. There Srila Prabhupada met the temple president Yashomati Nandan Das, a tall, lean brahmachari from Australia, who remained behind for a few minutes to ask if Gaura Nitai and Jagannath deities could be formally installed. Prabhupada looked at him quizzically and asked why. Obviously not expecting that Prabhupada would ask him why, Yashomati Nandan appeared a little flustered. He said that since this is Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, it would be nice to worship Gaura Nitai. He also said that Jagannath deities they presently worship are so small they can hardly be seen. Would it be all right if they install larger deities? He asked and dropped the little deities into the sea. Yashomati Nandan's question and tone of voice was somewhat ambiguous. It wasn't clear whether he felt the yatra needed the deities, and he was therefore asking for Prabhupada to Prabhupada's formal approval, or whether he wanted Prabhupada to decide if they really needed them or not. So Prabhupada became irritated and said to the sannyasis present, "He does not understand the value of the deity." Yashomatinandan became confused and so asked, "Well, should they continue to worship the small ones and just bring the larger ones out for Ratha Yatra?" Now Prabhupada became annoyed. "Just see," he said. "He thinks they are dolls." Looking slightly disgusted, he shook his head. But despite his vexation, he concluded the conversation by saying that he would think about it more. Yeah, so we can understand, like, in the early days, devotees were new. They didn't know much about deities and stuff. But nonetheless, we can see how much service they have done. Like, although they were still learning, Srila Prabhupada was kind to them. He didn't chastise them heavily, because he was giving them a chance. So although we can see, like, now in ISKCON, there is so much of standards, there's so much of Sikha association. Like in the early days, it was just Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada had to do everything. So the devotees were limited in association, and getting approval. Like now, if we want something, we can always ask a devotee, a senior devotee, and it can be explained to us and we can learn very nicely. But in those days, it was difficult for the devotees. They didn't have books, and so it was early days. So April 27, 1976. For his morning walk, the devotees took Prabhupada out to the domain, a local park with small ponds, walkways, and various statues. One depicted a Viking warrior on horseback, blowing a horn. Yashomati Nandan asked if the Vikings were Kshatriyas. "No," Srila Prabhupada said. "The Kshatriyas fought on religious principles. They were noble warriors, not murderers." "What about the modern soldiers?" Yashomati Nandan inquired. "Do they go to the heavenly planets when they die on the battlefield?" Prabhupada shook his head. "They are simply demons, fighting demons for economic reasons. How can they go to heaven? They go to hell, both sides." So, current affairs of recent, so many wars that are taking place. I'm not too sure if the temple devotees are kind of following. There's if you look out, there's wars in every continent at the moment. And it's a very nice point here Srila Prabhupada is making. So we can understand that the present day governments are run by demons, and they're not following religious principles. So we see that there's so much of turmoil in the world. And what was good about Srila Prabhupada, I was just thinking on my way, that Srila Prabhupada wasn't scared to address issues. When he went to America, he addressed issues with the system. He spoke about the UN, the ineffectiveness of the UN. When he came to South Africa, although it was apartheid South Africa, he wasn't scared to speak out. So Srila Prabhupada, he always led from the front, and he was always vocal. He always presented Krishna conscious point of view, and the world actually needs Krishna consciousness. Where I was thinking about it, because seeing so much of death taking place, so many wars in Ukraine, now there's a war in Palestine, there's a war in Sudan, and we see that the UN is ineffective. Every day you see the UN cannot make decisions, and Srila Prabhupada also spoke about the ineffectiveness of the UN. And we, as devotees, we may be wondering, how does it affect us? Does it affect us? So we should also worry, because the compassionate nature of devotees, we have to show compassion. Srila Prabhupada had this compassion. So that's what and he preached through his books. We'll continue reading. Prabhupada was scheduled to give initiation to 7 new disciples this morning. Thus, when we arrived back, the small temple room was already bedecked with colorful decorations and an unusual fire pit. Instead of using bricks for the outer walls, the devotees had placed a dozen small, smooth boulders taken from gardens all around the earthen base. It added more natural ambience to the proceedings. When Srila Prabhupada greeted the deities, he saw the provisions had been made on the altar for the proposed 2 new sets of deities. 3 simple wooden dome-shaped canopies, perched on slender, polished wood columns, stood side by side, with the beautiful forms of Shri Shri Radha Giridhari beneath the center one. Under the right side dome, there was an empty base ready to receive Shri Shri Gaura Nitai. On the opposite side, the tiny forms of the Lord Jagannath and his brother, sister, stood before a larger base for the bigger deities. After Pushta Krishna Swami informed Prabhupada, the devotees had already purchased the deities and had made preparations for their worship. Srila Prabhupada decided that the installation ceremony could take place. However, it was too short notice to combine the installation with the initiation, and so there will be a second fire yajna tomorrow. Immediately after Guru Puja and a short lecture, Prabhupada initiated 7 new disciples, including some of Krishna Krishna Swami's men. In view of Srila Prabhupada's remarks to Krishna Krishna Maharaj in Melbourne, Krishna made sure they shaved their heads for the occasion. So yeah, this part about shaving heads. Srila Prabhupada was always insistent that they should do that. And I was thinking of a devotee, Chandrakanta Prabhu, a devotee of His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami, and he told me Bhakti Charu Swami also wanted his disciples, when they were taking initiation, they should have their heads shaven and he should check on them. So I just thought, okay, let me mention that point. Continue reading. A reporter from the Herald newspaper conducted a half-an-hour interview with Srila Prabhupada after breakfast. He asked the usual questions of how many followers do you have and how many centers. When Prabhupada told him he started the movement on the orders of his Guru Maharaj, the reporter mistakenly thought he was talking about one of the Mayavadi Gurus who calls himself Guru Maharaj. So he asked Prabhupada what he thought about it. Prabhupada candidly told him that only the Krishna consciousness movement is presenting the authorized Vedic culture. Other gurus are presenting sentiment only, and anyone who claims to be God is simply bogus. So they go on reading here. Apparently some local city officials are trying to ban the devotees from chanting in the street. The reporter mentioned this, and Krishna Krishna confirmed that there had indeed been some publicity in 1 or 2 other cities, some favorable and some unfavorable. Prabhupada was pleased because he said that if there is agitation against chanting, it is also good. Even if they say that Hare Krishna is bad, that is also good, because at least they will have chanted Hare Krishna. Prabhupada told the devotees they will become triumphant if they continue to chant and distribute books. So yeah, this point about chanting and distributing books is very important. It's a book marathon, so we can talk about that later. Book marathon. But I think the chanting, Srila Prabhupada always emphasized the chanting, how potent the chanting is. Because we can understand that when we go out and do kirtan, that this chanting is powerful, it has the effect. We see the effect. Sometimes you may find that people at first may be inimical, but soon, once they hear the holy name, that enmity will be eradicated from their hearts. So continue here. But he cautioned them as well. They think the Hare Krishna movement is disturbing a rascal civilization. So let us try our best. What can be done? You're helping in this movement, so don't spoil the movement by manufacturing ideas. Don't do that. Go on in the standard way. Keep yourself pure. Then the movement is sure to be successful. But if you want to spoil it by being whimsical, then what can be done? It will be spoiled. If you manufacture worms and disagree and fight amongst yourself, then it will be another edition of these so-called movements. It will lose the spiritual strength. Always remember it. Don't make it an ordinary musical vibration. It is a different thing, spiritual. So mantra is not an ordinary sound vibration. We have to keep the mantra in potency by offenseless chanting, by remaining pure. If you pollute the mantra, then it will lose its effect. Krishna Krishna informed Srila Prabhupada that they have decided to build a temple on their farm and to install deities. Prabhupada was pleased to hear this. He told him that he should build hundreds of such temples all around the country and revolutionize the entire civilization. So yeah, it seems from this that there was some disagreement amongst the devotees. There were 2 parties, and actually Krishna Krishna Maharaj played a very important role in the Jew temple. He was a devotee that met Mr. Nair and introduced Mr. Nair to Srila Prabhupada, and then that's how the deal started, where So he was playing a very important role. And as we read on, we'll see that how nicely Srila Prabhupada dealt with Krishna Maharaj. Although there were disagreements, but Srila Prabhupada encouraged the devotees. So that's an important point too. We see currently, even in ISKCON, there are many disagreements, but we should maybe look at how Srila Prabhupada dealt with devotees and try to encourage them to the best of our abilities, so that no one leaves ISKCON, and we can encourage them to chant Hare Krishna, offer service. Because I was thinking, like, when you're in the Olympics and you're in this boat, and you have like maybe 7 rowers. One guy is controlling the direction of the boat, and the others are rowing. We all should row in the same direction for the mission. And Srila Prabhupada's mission was to give Krishna consciousness to the entire world. So if our focus is on that, then we'll be very successful. So I think that it's so important that we should know what the goal is. Row in the same direction. Give our energy, put everything in it. Because if you find that 6 of the rowers are rowing in one direction and the one is rowing in the back, it kind of like will hinder the progress of what we need to do. So if we understand what Srila Prabhupada's mission is, his mission was to take this chanting of the holy names to the West. Give the chanting, because the people in the West, that which includes all of us, we were ignorant. And this chanting of the holy name is what made ISKCON successful. It's the means and the end to everything that we are doing. And such an important, we take it for granted, we chant, but if we understand how much of energy Srila Prabhupada put into this and how much of conviction he had in this, so this is the success for us personally and for the movement as well. The importance of the chanting of the holy name. And then everything else will fall in its place, whether it is having big festivals, building new temples, being successful in book distribution. So we'll continue reading. Prabhupada still found time in his hectic schedule to reply to letters given to him by a young woman in Melbourne who gave him a gold necklace. So here, there was this young lady from Melbourne. She had just joined ISKCON, come in contact with devotees, the philosophy, but somehow she had some challenges as well. Because, most devotees may experience this problem where when you first join, like if you're in a marriage, one person may be serious and the other person may be inimical towards the process. And this lady was experiencing this problem. But it was so wonderful the way Srila Prabhupada dealt in the situation, like how he encouraged her to chant Hare Krishna, associate with the devotees. But also he never told her, because her husband was a meat eater and she had a child and he never allowed the 6-month-old child to go to the temple. But Srila Prabhupada never said, oh no, leave your husband, leave your child. He encouraged her, no, just chant Hare Krishna and Krishna will help you. So this was like Srila Prabhupada's mood as well. He knew how to deal with different situations in different ways. Not like one shoe fits all, He time, place, and candidate. And he also says here, Srila Prabhupada was sympathetic but didn't advise her to do anything radical. Rather, he recommended she remain in her present situation and take shelter of Krishna. He said that by always chanting the Maha Mantra and by going to the temple as much as possible, Krishna would offer her all protection and make all suitable arrangements for her to be engaged in his service. And we go on reading here. He also sent a long letter to Swarup Damodar Das explaining the structure of the universe. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai. He instructed him to collaborate with other PhDs and study the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam to construct a model for the Vedic planetarium in Mayapur. And then Srila Prabhupada said, my decision is final, that the universe is just like a tree, with roots upwards. Just as a tree has branches and leaves, so the universe is also composed of planets which are fixed up in the tree like the leaves, flowers, fruits, etc. of the tree. The pivot is the polar star, and the whole tree is rotating on the pivot. Mount Sumeru is the center trunk and is like a steep hill, like the Alps mountain, which also have very high peaks. I've seen in Switzerland one mountain peak which is so high that it penetrated through the clouds. The tree is turning, and therefore all the branches and leaves turn with the tree. The planets have their fixed orbits, but still they are turning and turning, and the turning of the great tree. There are pathways leading from one planet to another made of gold, copper, etc. And these are all like the branches. Distances are also described in the fifth canto, how far one planet is from another. So Srila Prabhupada goes on, and then he also says, I do not think that the modern astronomers have any such idea that the whole universe is like a big tree. So as we all have known, that we've been taught in school that everything revolves around the sun. But according to the Srimad Bhagavatam and Vedic literatures, that's not true. And on this point, like Srila Prabhupada had one disciple when the Americans claimed that they went to the moon. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, they didn't go to the moon. So one of his disciples, he disagreed with Srila Prabhupada. He could not accept the fact that what Srila Prabhupada was saying was true, because Srila Prabhupada was speaking from scripture. And he actually left the movement. And then later on, you'd find that under conspiracy theories, they did prove that man didn't go to the moon. And there was many points they put forward to show that that was a lie and a hoax. And yes, Srila Prabhupada was speaking the truth from scripture. So we're accepting it from scripture, although it may not seem correct according to the scientists, but we're accepting it on the authority of the Shastra, Guru, and Sadhu. So that's how we should accept knowledge. That is perfect knowledge, accepting it on that basis. So Srila Prabhupada was encouraging the devotees. So it was Swarup Damodar Prabhu was Dr. Swarup Damodar. So they had a team, and Srila Prabhupada really wanted them to present the scientific aspect from the scriptures. So we go on reading. So it's actually, since there are few devotees at this temple, I got my first chance to cook for His Divine Grace. So the author attempted to cook for Srila Prabhupada, and for some reason he overcooked everything, because he saw how Srila Prabhupada was using his cooker, and he thought it was easy, and then when he tried it, he overcooked everything. But Srila Prabhupada was tolerant with him, although if it wasn't up to the standard, he nonetheless encouraged him, and, so he didn't chastise him severely, although it was not up to standard. And there was also mentioning about Madhavi Swami, the former GBC. In the afternoon, while Srila Prabhupada was resting, Pushna Krishna Swami interrupted a conversation between Yashomatinandan Prabhu and myself to question him about the Madhavi's previous activities during a 3-day period last year when Madhavi apparently disappeared on a visit to Fiji. Pushna Krishna wouldn't reveal his purpose behind the questions, but it seemed to be linked to the private meeting Guru Kripa Maharaj and he had with Prabhupada when they first visited in Melbourne. Goes on, Prabhupada gave an evening lecture from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 2098, text 102, describing the story of Sri Sanatana Goswami to a packed audience in the narrow temple room. He made a special point of saying that when Sanatana approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Benares, the first thing he did was shave off his beard and hair. This is one of the items of our movement, he said. If one wants to be initiated, he must be clean-shaven. Most of those in attendance were Tushna Krishna Maharaj's men, and most of them were not shaven-headed. After his formal lecture, Prabhupada remained in the temple room until 9:30 p.m. to give a general darshan, and everyone came forward to present gifts. One by one, they heaped his Vyasasan with boxes of dried fruit, cellophane-wrapped presents, fruit, homemade scarves, woolen hats, socks, and various other items. Prabhupada sat satisfied and happy, giving them all the benedictions of his wonderful smile and encouraging words. At least while he is here, the difference between the two groups of devotees seemed to have been put aside. Prabhupada is a master of all, and in his presence, the mood is friendly and devotional. So Srila Prabhupada was able to unite the devotees, although there was differences of agreements. Is there any questions, or anybody wants to anything. So now we're going on to April 28, 1976. Because of a very tight schedule, Prabhupada skipped his usual walk and took a short massage at about 5:30 a.m., followed by his bath. Then, after donning fresh, clean garments, he went down into the temple room to install the new brass murtis of Sri Sri Gaura Nitai and some very beautiful deities of their lordships, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. These latter were expertly carved by a local boy, Bhakta Bari Jensen. The ceremony went quite smoothly, despite a fairly apparent state of disorganization amongst the temple devotees. They ran frantically around, setting up the fire yajna, preparing the feast, and readying the altar, while Krishna Krishna followers chanted with their guitars and instruments. Prabhupada remained on his Vyasasan, a simple but impressive high marble-covered brick base with a covered-shaped marble back, all built on the rear wall. The devotees sat before him and crowded along the sides in the door of the narrow room. Prabhupada watched benignly as Guru Kripa Swami bathed the transcendental forms of the Lord, chanted the cyclic pranam mantras, and performed the fire ceremony. There were some minor glitches. When the deities were bathed, some of the paint on Lord Jagannath's face began to run, and when the altar curtains opened for the deities' first darshan, Gaura and Tai were not wearing crowns. Shri Prabhupada immediately had the curtains closed and reopened when they were properly dressed. He didn't complain strongly, though. It was evident that the devotees were doing their best, and Prabhupada didn't want to squelch their enthusiasm. Prabhupada himself performed the first arti while the devotees held a jubilant kirtan. After returning upstairs and taking breakfast prasadam, he held a last small meeting with Tushna Krishna Swami, Yashomati Nandan Das, and Guru Kripa Maharaj before leaving for Fiji. As the three of them sat before him, he turned to Yashomati Nandan and said, "So you stay here and take care of these people. There are some good prospects amongst them." He also told him that now that the larger Jagannath deities were installed, he must hold Ratha Yatra. His final instruction to Tushna Krishna Swami was that he should build a temple, install deities, and train his men to Brahmanical standards. He wants him to bring his men up to the standard of worship as done by the devotees in Melbourne. This little to complete here. There was a big send-off at the airport. As he waited for our flight, Shri Prabhupada sat serenely and stately as the entire assembly of devotees settled in a large semicircle on the floor in front of him. An atmosphere of blissful tranquility seemed to envelop the gatherings as everyone took the last darshan of His Divine Grace. Hariram Das, a former rock group member, now with Tushta, began to play his guitar and chant Hare Krishna to a gentle, lilting melody. Guru Kripa Swami began to play kartal softly as accompaniment. Prabhupada, however, stopped him, allowing the boy to sing solo for a few minutes. As he listened with obvious pleasure, smiling broadly, Prabhupada gave him his garland. In this way, he encouraged Tushta's men to continue their chanting, knowing that as long as they did this, even if they never agree to cooperate with ISKCON, they will continue to be purified and make spiritual advancement. He is their spiritual master and he wants to keep them somehow connected. When the time came to depart, everyone followed His Divine Grace right to the boarding gate door, chanting all the way. Our plane departed for Nandi, Fiji at 11 a.m. So we finished this reading and we've got some time to discuss the points. And we could see that how much Sri Prabhupada accomplished in that short time that he spent in New Zealand, how he dealt with the devotees, how he dealt with conflict, how he united everybody, and also he never compromised with the standards. He also gave instructions that we should maintain the standards. But also he was merciful as well. So this is the qualities of Sri Prabhupada. That his compassionate nature, is very merciful, tolerant. He also was encouraging the devotees. We could see from the incident with the deities where the paint was running off and stuff, that Sri Prabhupada never go off the tangent with regards to that. He rather understood that the devotees were trying their best. And then from the reading as well, we understand that how much emphasis Srila Prabhupada was putting on the chanting of the holy names. That was his mission. And he also mentioned that in the book, Watching the Seed, I was reading it, and so Srila Prabhupada wanted the devotees to chant. He really was, in Watching the Seed, he speaks about the chanting. The success lies in the chanting. So at one time, the devotees, they had to go to a program for some rich supporter who had left his body, and there was only just one devotee left in the temple. And so when Srila Prabhupada was in his room, he could not hear the arti taking place. So this was in Bombay. And then he inquired from the devotees, why is there no arti? And the devotee replied, no, the devotees have gone out. So when the devotees returned back, so that was my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Gira Swami, when they returned back, Srila Prabhupada asked them, and they said, no, we had to go attend this program. Then Srila Prabhupada mentioned that the devotees can go out at 9 o'clock and return by 5. But the chanting of the holy names must take place. The program in the temple must take place. He says when we chant nicely, then everything will be successful. So everything will be successful. All our programs will be successful. Whether we're doing, whether we're having festivals, book distribution. So the chanting, the emphasis, you can see from the reading as well, always Srila Prabhupada is speaking about the chanting. And then the do's and don'ts, I thought I will just maybe quickly go over it. And then you probably said 10 minutes we can have the devotees, they can maybe share their viewpoints and stuff. So the 10 do's and don'ts, just as a summary. The don'ts, this is from the Nectar of Devotion. So it's here, eating more than necessary or collecting more funds that is required. The 2 is over-endeavoring for mundane things that is very difficult to obtain. 3 is talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. 4, practicing scriptural rules and regulations only for the sake of following them and not for the sake of spiritual advancement, or rejecting the rules and regulations of the scriptures and working independently or whimsically. Associating with worldly-minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness and being greedy for mundane achievements. Then the do's. So there's 6 principles favorable for execution of pure devotional service. Being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, being patient, acting according to regulative principles, which is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering, and abandoning the association of non-devotees. Following in the footsteps of previous acharyas, these 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service. So we could see actually the emphasis was here as well. We could take from this enthusiasm, the devotees were trying their best. Srila Prabhupada was speaking about the association as well. Like, should not work independently. She mentioned the point. It's in the Nectar of Devotion. And endeavoring with confidence. So Srila Prabhupada has shown us, by personal example as well, that how at the age of 70, he went to America and he achieved so much. He had no money. He had no followers. He had confidence in chanting of the holy names, the instructions of his Guru Maharaj, and in this book Prabhupada I've been reading. So it was so touching to think that now it is book marathon and we have this opportunity to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. We should try our best, and I'm looking at the scores. I see this, it's 15,008. And if the devotees, so obviously there's devotees that your devotees are distributing books, but there's also an audience that may be listening to the feed. That if each devotee tried to take one book in our congregation, so that means each devotee, not just only the book distributors, the devotees from the temple, if each devotee takes one book, and I think if our congregation consists of 3,000 devotees, we'll do 3,000, and then if the devotees are very enthusiastic and they decide to distribute 2 books, it's going to be 6,000. And if they become more enthusiastic, they take 3 books and distribute, it's going to be 9,000. So as a congregation, it can be done. So 15,008 looks as a big number. But if each of us do our bit for Srila Prabhupada, and I want to emphasize this point because the opportunity to give, to receive Srila Prabhupada's mercy as well as to please Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada went to the West. As an old man, he went to the West. He had to undergo so much of hardship. If you understand, when Srila Prabhupada landed in America, he had no friends, he had no money, he was an old man, it was cold, it was an unfamiliar place for him. And he had to go under so much of trouble. If you read that book, Prabhupada, by Visvarupa Maharaj, and if we understand that Srila Prabhupada had to do so much of trouble he went through just to get the money, print the books, and then give everything to the movement. So we as devotees, we should try our best. So yeah, we got about 10 minutes. Is there anyone wants to add anything with regards to the lecture, book distribution? And then the other point that I also want to make is about the Back to Godhead magazines. So the Back to Godhead magazines as well in this book marathon, if we could also try our very best to distribute Back to Godhead magazines, that will be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada, be pleasing to your Guru, and also be good for us as well. And there is special mercy in this month of book marathon, because Srila Prabhupada is giving us that mercy to distribute. So all we have to do is just speak to somebody. And I know you're the temple devotees, they're doing it, but it's going out to whoever is listening to the feed. Yeah, so this is a very important point. And since I've got about 12 minutes, I would like to read from Watching the Seed. Is that okay? So it's dealing with book distribution. So this chapter is from chapter 6, Prabhupada's books, Distribute and Get Mercy, page 173. So I'm going to read this. It's a short chapter. In the Distribute and Get Mercy, in his concluding words to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srila Prabhupada writes, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was very fond of seeing many books published to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, our society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, has formed to execute the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. On this occasion, therefore, I request my disciples who are determined to help me in this work to continue their cooperation fully, so that the philosophers, scholars, religionists, and people in general all over the world will benefit by reading our transcendental literatures, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now we, the members of ISKCON and the followers of Srila Prabhupada, must execute the order to preach and distribute books. Srila Prabhupada tells the story of the impersonal guru who touched his disciple to enlighten him with spiritual knowledge. When the disciple opened his eyes, he saw his guru was crying. When he asked, Master, why are you crying? The master replied, Because I have given all my knowledge to you and I have none left. Srila Prabhupada explains that in the material concept, if you give something away, you lose it. The more you give, the less you have. But in Krishna consciousness, the more you distribute knowledge, the more you get. And if you have spiritual knowledge and you do not distribute it, you become envious. We have seen practically that the more we distribute the transcendental knowledge in Srila Prabhupada's books, the more realization increases. Thus, both he who gives and he who receives transcendental knowledge benefits. But the greatest benefit in distributing Srila Prabhupada's books is that Srila Prabhupada is pleased. Go on increasing the books. Go on increasing my pleasure, he wrote me. So let us pray to Srila Prabhupada and redouble our enthusiasm and determination to distribute his mercy, and surely his mercy will be upon us. So I would like to stop there. Is there anyone wants to comment or add? Are we okay? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hope the lecture was perfect. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.